When Cole Maddox found her in the dust, he wasn't looking for anyone to save. The sun hung low over the Arizona border, bleeding red across a landscape that had seen too much blood already. Cole's horse slowed to a walk as his eyes caught movement near an overturned wagon. Buzzards circled overhead. That was never a good sign. He spotted the dying horse first, its breathing shallow and wet. Then the scattered supplies. Flour sacks torn open, their contents mixing with dark stains in the dirt. And finally, her. A woman crawled through the wreckage, leaving a trail behind her. Her dress was torn, face covered in dust, and something darker. She looked up at him with eyes that held more fire than fear. "Don't leave me here," she whispered. Cole dismounted, boots hitting the ground with a thud that scattered the nearest buzzards. He wasn't a rescuer. He was a hunter. Men paid him to track down the worst kinds of people and drag them back to face justice, dead or alive. Mercy wasn't part of the job description, but he'd never been able to walk away from someone still breathing. "You're lucky I don't leave anyone to die," he muttered, kneeling beside her. Blood soaked through her sleeve. A bullet had grazed her shoulder, deep enough to hurt, but shallow enough to survive if she got help soon. "The men who did this," she gasped. "The McRae gang. They killed my husband. They took everything." Cole's jaw tightened. He knew that name. Every bounty hunter west of the Mississippi knew the McRae gang. Vicious, organized, smart enough to stay ahead of the law for 3 years running. He lifted her carefully, and she didn't cry out even though he knew it hurt. Tough woman. The kind the frontier either killed or forged into something unbreakable. "What's your name?" he asked, settling her across his saddle. "Nora Briggs." "Cole Maddox." "Hold on tight, Mrs. Briggs. This ride's going to be rough." He thought she'd slow him down. He didn't know she'd change his life. "Would you have stopped for a stranger in the middle of outlaw country? Tell me in the comments what you'd do." The cabin sat 3 miles from the nearest town, tucked into a canyon where the wind howled like wolves at night. Cole had bought it with bounty money 2 years back, a place to rest between hunts. It wasn't much. A single room, a fireplace, a bed, and a table. But it was his. He kicked the door open and carried Nora inside, laying her on the bed with more gentleness than he'd shown another human in years. She was unconscious now, which made things easier. He set to work cleaning the wound, his hands steady despite the tremor he felt deep in his chest. Every act of mercy carries consequences. 3 days passed before Nora's fever broke. Cole spent them hunting rabbits, boiling water, changing bandages. He wasn't much of a nurse, but he'd patched enough bullet holes in his own hide to know the basics. When she finally opened her eyes, the first thing she said was, "I'll pay you back." Cole was at the stove, frying salt pork in a cast iron pan. He glanced over his shoulder. "You don't owe me anything. I'm not a charity case." She tried to sit up, winced, and settled back against the pillow with a frustrated sigh. "I have money. My husband left me land near Silver Creek. Once I'm healed, I'll sell it and pay whatever you're owed. I didn't ask for payment, and I didn't ask to be saved by a man who makes his living off death." The words stung more than they should have. Cole turned back to his cooking, jaw tight. "You're free to leave any time you can walk, Mrs. Briggs. It's Miss now." Her voice softened. "And I'm sorry. That was cruel. You did save my life." "Forget it." But he couldn't forget it. Neither could she. An awkward silence settled over the cabin like snow. Over the next week, Nora regained her strength. She insisted on helping around the cabin despite Cole's protests. She cooked better than he did, cleaned without being asked, and never complained about the sparse conditions. Pride kept her moving even when pain showed in her eyes. The town gossip started on day 8. Cole rode into Silver Creek for supplies and found the general store buzzing with speculation. The bounty hunter living with a widow. Alone. Unchaperoned. The scandal practically wrote itself. Sheriff Hayes cornered him outside. A man with more belly than badge authority, but good intentions nonetheless. "People are talking, Maddox. Let them talk. I'm just saying, a woman's reputation in a town like this isn't your concern or theirs." Cole loaded his supplies onto his horse. "She was dying. I helped. That's the story. There's another story you should know about." The sheriff's voice dropped. "The McRae gang hit a stage 2 days south of here. Killed the driver, took $3,000 in bank notes. They're moving north." Cole's hands stilled on the saddle. "Towards Silver Creek." "Looks that way." When Cole returned to the cabin, he found Nora on the porch, staring at the horizon. She'd regained color in her cheeks, strength in her stance. The bruises had faded to yellow shadows. I heard you talking to the sheriff, she said quietly. In town, people have loud voices when they gossip. Don't listen to them. I'm not worried about gossip, Mr. Maddox. I'm worried about the McCrae gang. She turned to face him, and her eyes held that same fire he'd seen in the dust. I want justice for my husband. I want them to pay. Justice isn't free. It's paid for in blood. Then I'll pay it. Cole studied her face, searching for doubt or fear. He found only determination and something harder to name. Grief, maybe, or purpose born from loss. You don't know what you're asking. I know exactly what I'm asking. She stepped closer. You're a bounty hunter. There's a price on their heads. Help me track them down, and whatever reward you get, you keep it all. I just want to look them in the eyes and know they answered for what they did. Pride can keep people from accepting the help they truly need. You'll slow me down, Cole said, but his resolve was already crumbling. I saved your bacon yesterday when that rattler got too close while you were chopping wood. I'm a decent shot. I can ride, and I won't faint at the sight of blood. What more do you need? He almost smiled. Almost. Your trouble in a dress, Mrs. Briggs. It's Mississippi. And yes, I am. So do we have a deal? Cole looked at her for a long moment, then extended his hand. We leave at dawn. Her grip was firm, her smile faint but real. If you were in Nora's boots, would you chase revenge or try to start over? Comment below. They rode south at sunrise, following the trail the McCrae gang had left like a scar across the territory. Cole tracked them the way he'd tracked dozens of outlaws before, reading signs in broken branches and disturbed earth. Nora kept pace without complaint, her horse a steady mare she'd borrowed from the livery. The first 2 days passed in relative silence. They were strangers learning each other's rhythms. Cole woke before dawn, always alert. Nora packed their supplies with military precision. They moved like two pieces of a clock, separate but synchronized. On the third day, the landscape changed. The green hills gave way to dry plains where dust devils danced, and the sun beat down without mercy. Water became scarce. Conversation became necessary. Why'd you become a bounty hunter? Nora asked as they watered the horses at a muddy creek. Cole didn't answer right away. Personal questions felt like trespassing. But out here, with nothing but sky and sand for miles, secrets felt heavier than usual. My brother, he finally said. Daniel. He was killed in a bank robbery when I was 19. The men who did it rode off free. Law didn't care enough to chase them down. So you did. Took me 3 years, but I found every last one of them. Nora watched him carefully. And then I discovered I was good at finding people who didn't want to be found. The work kept me moving, kept me from thinking too much. He looked at her. Your turn. What did your husband do? Rancher. Good man. Gentle. Her voice caught. The McCrae gang wanted his land for smuggling routes. He refused to sell. They killed him in front of me, burned the house, and left me for dead. The raw pain in her words made Cole's chest tighten. How'd you survive? I crawled into the root cellar. Stayed there 2 days before I had the strength to move. By then, they were long gone. She splashed water on her face. I've been looking for them ever since. That's what the wagon ambush was about. You were tracking them. Yes, and they found me first. Cole stood, checking the horizon out of habit. They won't find you again. Not while I'm breathing. The words came out heavier than he intended, a promise rather than a statement. Nora met his eyes and nodded once. That night, the storm came. They saw it building on the horizon, a wall of brown and black that swallowed the sky. Cole had seen sandstorms before, knew their violence. They had maybe 10 minutes before it hit. There, Nora pointed to a rock formation, a natural shelter carved by wind and time. They rode hard, reaching it just as the storm unleashed its fury. Wind screamed through the canyon. Sand scoured everything it touched. They huddled together in the shallow cave, horses pressed close, while nature raged outside. I've never seen anything like this, Nora shouted over the wind. First rule of the frontier, Cole shouted back. Nature always gets the last word. The storm lasted 3 hours. When it finally passed, the world had been reshaped. We need to find water, Cole said, studying the altered landscape. There's a settlement maybe 2 days west, but without water, we won't make it. Then we dig. For the next 4 hours, they dug in a dried riverbed, following Cole's instinct about underground streams. The sun climbed higher. Sweat poured. Nora's hands blistered, but she never stopped. Finally, moisture. Then mud. then blessed, life-saving water seeping up from below. They drank carefully, rationing what they'd found. As the sun set, they made camp near their makeshift well. The ordeal had stripped away the last of their formality. "You're tougher than most men I've tracked," Cole said, tending the fire. "And you're kinder than you pretend to be. Don't spread that around. Bad for my reputation." She laughed, a real laugh that transformed her face. Cole realized it was the first time he'd heard it. The sound did something to his chest, made it feel less hollow. They cooked beans and dried meat, shared stories about nothing important. The conversation flowed easier now, lubricated by shared survival. "I had a dog once," Nora said. "Big stupid thing named Bear. He ate my shoes, destroyed 2 chairs, and once got into the chicken coop and caused absolute chaos. Sounds terrible. He was the best thing in my life for 3 years." Her smile faded. "The gang shot him when they came for Daniel." Cole's hand found hers without thinking. The touch was electric, unexpected. Neither of them pulled away. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "Me too." The fire crackled. Stars emerged, more than either of them could count. In the vastness of the desert night, 2 broken people sat closer than strangers should. The next morning, Nora saved his life. Cole was checking his saddle when she screamed his name. He turned to see a diamondback rattler coiled 2 feet from his leg, ready to strike. Before he could move, Nora's pistol cracked. The snake's head exploded. Cole stared at the dead serpent, then at Nora, who lowered her gun with shaking hands. "Good shot," he managed. "I hate snakes," she said, holstering her weapon. "But I hate the thought of you dying more." Their eyes met across the campsite. Something shifted in that moment, a recognition neither of them was ready to name. Healing begins when 2 broken souls stop pretending they're fine. That night, around the campfire, Cole told her about Daniel. Really told her. How his brother had been the good one, the one with plans and dreams. How Cole had failed to protect him. How guilt had driven him into this life of violence. "You didn't fail him," Nora said softly. "You were a kid yourself. I should have been there. And if you had been, you'd be dead too. Then who would have tracked down his killers? Who would have made sure they paid?" She leaned forward. "Your brother's death was tragic, Cole, but your life isn't a failure. You've helped people. You've made a difference. By killing. By seeking justice when no one else would." Cole looked at her across the flames. This woman who'd lost everything yet still found room for compassion. "How are you not eaten alive by hate?" "Oh, I am some days." Her voice dropped. "But hate is exhausting. And lonely. I'd rather remember the love than feed the rage." They sat in comfortable silence after that, watching sparks rise toward the stars. Cole felt something loosening in his chest, a knot he'd carried for so long he'd forgotten it was there. Later, when Nora fell asleep by the fire, Cole covered her with his jacket and took first watch. He told himself it was just practical. She needed rest. He was used to staying alert. He didn't want to admit that watching over her felt like the first purposeful thing he'd done in years. The McCrae gang found them in Dead Man's Canyon. Cole had been tracking their movements for 6 days, staying just far enough behind to avoid detection. But somewhere, he'd miscalculated. Or maybe they'd been better than he thought. The ambush came at noon, when the sun made everything shimmer and sight lines wavered. 5 riders emerged from behind rock formations, spreading out to cut off escape routes. Maddox, the leader, Jack McCrae, was a barrel-chested man with a beard like steel wool. "Heard you were sniffing around. Should have known you'd track us eventually." Cole's hand moved toward his gun, but 7 more riders appeared on the canyon rim above them. 12 against 2. Bad odds even for him. "Let the woman go," Cole said. "Your fight's with me." "The woman?" Jack laughed, cruel and sharp. "That's the Briggs widow." Nora's face went pale, but her jaw set. "You murdered my husband, you bastard." "Business is business, sweetheart." He was in the way. Jack spat tobacco juice. "Just like you are now." The first shot came from Cole's gun, taking down the nearest rider. Then chaos erupted. Cole moved like violence incarnate, his gun speaking in sharp syllables. 2 more men fell, but return fire was heavy, pinning them behind rocks. A bullet clipped Cole's shoulder, spinning him around. Another caught his thigh, and he went down hard. "Cole!" Nora scrambled to him, dragging him behind better cover. Blood soaked through his shirt, his pants. Too much blood. "Get out of here," he gasped. "Ride hard. Don't look back." "Shut up." She reloaded his pistols, her hands surprisingly steady. I'm not leaving you. Love isn't about rescue. It's about risking yourself for another. The gang closed in, their confidence growing. Cole tried to stand, but his leg wouldn't hold. The world tilted sideways. Then Nora did something insane. She stood up, hands raised, and walked into the open. You want me? She shouted. Fine. I surrender. Just let him go. Nora, no. Cole tried to reach for her, but darkness crept into his vision. Jack McCrae laughed. Well now, that's mighty noble. Stupid, but noble. Boys, grab her. We'll kill Maddox slow. Let him watch what we do to her first. Two men dismounted and grabbed Nora's arms. She didn't fight, didn't struggle. She just looked back at Cole once, her eyes saying goodbye. I'll find you, Cole whispered, but she was already being dragged away. I swear to God, I'll find you. Then the darkness took him completely. Cole woke to buzzards circling overhead and pain like fire in every nerve. The sun had moved. Hours had passed. His wounds had clotted, but barely. Moving was agony. But Nora was alive. They'd taken her alive. He dragged himself to where his horse stood waiting, loyal beast. Getting into the saddle took 20 minutes and cost him consciousness twice. But he managed. He always managed. The tracks were easy to follow. The gang wasn't worried about pursuit from a dead man. They'd made camp 12 miles east, in a box canyon with a single entrance. Perfect place for a trap. Also perfect for an attack if you were crazy enough. Cole waited until full dark. He left his horse a mile out and crawled the rest of the way, ignoring the screaming protest from his wounds. Pain was just information. He'd learned to file it away and keep moving. He counted 10 men around the fire. Nora was tied to a wagon wheel, bruised but alive. Relief and rage warred in his chest. He had 6 bullets left. 10 men. The math wasn't good. So he changed the math. The canyon walls were unstable, eroded by years of flash floods. Cole found a crack in the rock face, a weakness. He wedged his rifle into it and fired twice at a point where centuries of erosion had left the stone fragile. The crack became a rumble. The rumble became a roar. Half the canyon wall came down, crushing 3 men and scattering the rest in panic. In the chaos, Cole attacked. He was a ghost, a demon, moving through the darkness with death in his hands. 2 men fell before they even saw him. 3 more died trying to mount a defense. Jack McCrae rallied his remaining men, 4 against 1 now. But Cole had surprise, fury, and nothing left to lose. The fight was brutal and close. Fists and knives when bullets ran out. Cole took more wounds, gave worse. His vision tunneled, focused only on surviving long enough to free Nora. Jack McCrae was the last one standing, a knife in each hand. You should have stayed dead, Maddox. Funny, Cole gasped. I was about to say the same to you. They clashed in a tangle of blades and desperate strength. Cole's injuries slowed him, but rage gave him focus. He caught Jack's wrist, twisted, drove the man's own knife into his chest. Jack's eyes went wide with shock, then empty. He fell without ceremony. Cole stumbled to Nora, cutting her bonds with shaking hands. She collapsed into his arms, and they held each other in the firelight, surrounded by death but miraculously alive. You came for me, she whispered. Always, he promised. I'll always come for you. Then his legs gave out, and they both went down. Nora caught him, cradled his head. Don't you dare die on me, Cole Maddox, she said fiercely. Don't you dare. Wasn't planning on it. His grin was bloody and weak. Got too much to live for now. She kissed him then, desperate and tender, a promise made in the shadow of death. When they broke apart, she was crying. We need to get you help. In a minute. He touched her face with a blood-stained hand. Just let me look at you a minute. Make sure you're real. I'm real. We're both real. And we're getting out of here. True connection comes when walls fall, not when words impress. They made it to the old Sanderson ranch house as the storm broke. Thunder rolled across the plains like artillery fire. Lightning turned the world white and black, white and black. The house had been abandoned for years, but the roof held. Nora got Cole inside, laid him on a dusty couch, and set to work by lamplight. This is going to hurt, she warned, threading a needle. Everything hurts already. Add it to the tab. She worked carefully, stitching the deepest wounds while rain hammered the roof. Her hands trembled but didn't falter. Cole watched her face, the concentration there, the care. You're good at this, he said through gritted teeth. I had to be. Frontier doesn't come with doctors on every corner. She tied off another suture. Daniel used to get hurt doing stupid ranch work. I patched him up more times than I can count. Tell me about him. The good parts. So she did. As the storm raged and her hands moved with practiced efficiency, Nora talked about her husband. Not the victim, not the martyr. The man. His terrible singing voice. His habit of burning breakfast. The way he danced with her in the kitchen for no reason at all. He sounds like he was happy, Cole said. We were happy. She tied off the last stitch and sat back, exhausted. Simple, ordinary happy. I didn't know how rare that was until it was gone. You'll find it again. Will I? She looked at him with eyes that held too much feeling. Will we? The question hung between them, heavy with implication. Cole reached for her hand, pulled her down beside him on the couch. I'm a bounty hunter, Nora. I live hard, right alone. I've got blood on my hands and ghosts in my past. You deserve better than that. And I'm a widow who just helped you kill 10 men. I've got my own ghosts, my own darkness. She laced her fingers with his. Maybe we're both too broken for better. Maybe broken is all we get. That's a hell of a foundation for anything good. Or maybe, she said softly, maybe two broken people can hold each other up. Maybe the cracks are where the light gets in. Thunder crashed overhead. Lightning illuminated her face, and Cole saw everything he'd been running from for years. Connection. Belonging. Home. He pulled her closer, ignoring the pain in his wounds. She came willingly, carefully, fitting against him like she'd always belonged there. You saved my life, she whispered against his neck. No. He tilted her face up to meet his eyes. You gave me one worth saving. The kiss was slow, deep, full of promises neither of them had words for. Her hands were gentle on his face, in his hair. His were careful on her waist, her back, holding her like something precious. They stayed like that for a long time, trading kisses and quiet words while the storm washed the world clean outside. When Nora finally pulled back, her cheeks were flushed, her breathing uneven. We should rest, she said. You need to heal. Stay with me. It wasn't a request, wasn't a demand, just a need spoken plainly. Always. She settled against his uninjured side, her head on his chest. His arm came around her, protective and sure. Outside, the rain fell softer now, gentler. Inside, two people who'd been alone too long finally found shelter in each other. If you've ever felt love born out of pain, share this video or comment yes below. Someone might need this story today. Silver Creek Sheriff's Office was busier than usual when Cole and Nora rode in 3 days later. Word of the McRae gang's demise had spread fast, and people lined the street to see the bounty hunter who'd ended their reign of terror. Cole ignored the attention, riding straight to the sheriff's office with 4 gang members tied across horses. He'd let the others lie where they fell, but these 4 had bounties worth collecting. Sheriff Hayes came out, eyes wide. Maddox, I heard rumors, but didn't believe them. You took out the entire gang. Most of them. Cole dismounted carefully, his wounds still healing. These 4 are alive. The rest aren't. And Jack McRae? Dead. The sheriff whistled low. That's 15,000 in bounties right there. Maybe more. Cole didn't care about the money yet. He had other business. I need you to file something for me. Mrs. Briggs here had property stolen by the gang. Land near her ranch that they took by force. I want it returned to her legal ownership. That's a matter for the land office, not me. Then point me to them. 2 hours of paperwork and testimony later, Nora stood outside the land office with legal documents restoring her property rights. She stared at the papers like they might disappear. I don't understand, she said quietly. How did you afford the filing fees? The legal representation. Cole shrugged, wincing as the movement pulled at his stitches. Bounty money's good for something. Cole, this is hundreds of dollars. Consider it payment for saving my life. Twice. You can't just. I can and I did. He met her eyes. You helped me get justice for Daniel. Let me help you get justice for yourself. Redemption is not about forgetting the past, but using it to build something better. They rode out to the ranch together that afternoon. What they found was both heartbreaking and hopeful. The main house was gone, burned to its foundation. But the barn still stood, weathered but solid. The land itself was good, rich soil near a reliable creek. It's not much, Nora said, surveying the ruins. It's everything, Cole countered. It's yours. It's real. And it's a start. They spent the next week camping on the property, making plans. Cole used more of his bounty money to buy lumber. Nora hired workers from town. Slowly, impossibly, a new house began to take shape. Cole discovered he liked building more than destroying. Each nail he drove felt like penance paid, debts settled. Nora worked beside him, measuring, planning, laughing when mistakes happened. The townspeople who'd gossiped before now came to help. A barn raising turned into a community effort. Women brought food. Men brought tools and strong backs. The ranch that had been a grave became a gathering place. "You're becoming respectable," the sheriff joked one afternoon, watching Cole frame a wall. "People actually like you now." "Don't spread it around," Cole muttered. "Bad for business." "You planning on going back to bounty hunting?" Cole looked across the construction site to where Nora was directing the placement of windows. She caught his eye and smiled, that transformative expression that made his chest ache in the best way. "No," he said simply. "I'm planning on staying put for a while." Weeks turned into months. The house was completed, simple but sturdy. Nora planted a garden. Cole built fences and broke horses to sell. They developed routines, small intimacies of domestic life. Morning coffee on the porch, watching sunrise paint the mountains gold. Evening walks along the creek, talking about nothing and everything. Nights tangled together in bed, learning each other's bodies and hearts with equal reverence. The town accepted them as a couple without fanfare. Cole Maddox, the feared bounty hunter, became just Cole, Nora's man. The transformation surprised no one more than him. "I never thought I'd have this," he admitted one night. Nora tucked against his side under handmade quilts. "A home, someone to come back to. And I never thought I'd love again after Daniel." She traced patterns on his chest. "But here we are. Any regrets?" "Only that we didn't find each other sooner." She propped herself up to look at him. "Though maybe we needed all that pain to appreciate what we have now. Heavy price for happiness. All the best things are." Cole pulled her down for a kiss, deep and slow, full of gratitude and desire, and something bigger than both. Outside, coyotes sang to the moon. Inside, two people who'd been lost had finally found their way home. But peace never lasts forever on the frontier. The attack came on a Tuesday night, 3 months after they'd settled into their new life. Cole was in the barn checking on a mare about to foal when he heard glass shatter in the house. He moved without thinking, pure instinct taking over. His gun was in his hand before conscious thought caught up. Years of bounty hunting had left reflexes that never fully relaxed. He burst through the back door to find a man in the kitchen, gun raised toward the bedroom. Cole recognized him immediately. Lyle McCrae, Jack's younger brother. He'd been in Santa Fe when the gang was wiped out, had escaped the slaughter. "Where is she?" Lyle snarled. "Behind you," Nora said calmly. She stood in the bedroom doorway, her own pistol aimed steady. The three of them formed a triangle of potential violence. "You killed my brother," Lyle said, eyes wild with grief and rage. "You took everything from me." "Your brother was a murderer," Cole said carefully. "He chose his path, and now I choose mine." Everything happened at once. Lyle's gun swung toward Nora. Cole fired. But Lyle was fast, faster than expected. His shot went wide as Cole's bullet took him in the shoulder, but it was enough to shatter the lamp, plunging the room into darkness. The fight that followed was brutal and close. Cole's wounds from months before had healed, but old injuries never truly disappear. Lyle was younger, desperate, fueled by vengeance. They crashed through furniture, fists and knees and elbows. Cole heard Nora shouting, but couldn't make out the words over the roar of blood in his ears. They rolled out onto the porch, down the steps, into the dirt yard. Lyle got on top, hands around Cole's throat. Black spots danced in Cole's vision. "This is how it ends," he thought distantly. "After everything, this is how it ends." Then Lyle jerked, his grip loosening. He looked down at the spreading red stain on his chest, confusion replacing rage in his eyes. He toppled sideways. Nora stood 5 feet away, Cole's rifle smoking in her hands. Tears streamed down her face, but her stance was solid. Her aim had been true. "You saved my life," Cole gasped, rubbing his throat. Nora dropped the rifle and ran to him, falling to her knees beside him. "Are you hurt? Tell me you're not hurt." "I'm fine." He pulled her into his arms, feeling her shake against him. "You did what you had to do. I killed him. You saved us both." They held each other in the dirt, while Lyle McCrae bled out nearby, the last remnant of a gang that had terrorized the territory. Around them, the ranch was quiet except for the wind and the distant howl of coyotes. Love isn't spoken. It's shown in moments of courage. The sheriff ruled it self-defense without hesitation. Lyle McRae had broken into private property with intent to kill. His death was justified, legal, righteous. But knowing something is right doesn't make it easy to live with. Nora grew quiet in the days after, moving through the house like a ghost. She cooked, cleaned, tended the garden, but the light had gone out of her eyes. Cole recognized the look. He'd worn it himself after his first kill. He didn't push, didn't try to force her to talk before she was ready. He just stayed close, a constant presence. When she wanted silence, he gave her silence. When she needed distraction, he invented chores that required two people. A week later, she finally broke. They were mending fence line when she dropped her hammer and just stood there, staring at her hands. "I can still feel the recoil," she said quietly. The rifle kicking back. The moment between pulling the trigger and seeing him fall. Cole set down his own tools and came to stand behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "It doesn't go away," he said honestly. "That weight, that knowledge. How many men have you killed, Cole?" "Too many. Some probably didn't. All of them haunt me in different ways." She turned in his arms to face him. "How do you live with it?" "By remembering why I did it. By trying to be better than the worst thing I've ever done." He cupped her face gently. "You killed Lyle McRae because he would have killed us both. You protected what we've built here. That's not murder, Nora. That's survival. I'm not sure I know the difference anymore. The difference is this." He gestured at the ranch around them, the house they'd built, the life they were creating. "Killers destroy. We're building. That's how you know which side you're on." She leaned against him, letting him take some of the weight. They stood like that for a long time. Two people who'd seen too much but refused to let it destroy them. "I love you," she said finally. "I don't think I've said it plainly, but I do. I love you, Cole Maddox." His throat tightened. Words had never been his strength, but these ones mattered. "I love you too. More than I knew I could love anything." "Then help me," she whispered. "Help me find the light again. Every day," he promised. "For as long as we both breathe." 6 months later, the ranch thrived. Cole had officially retired his bounty hunter badge, turning it in to the federal marshal with no ceremony or regret. The work had defined him for so long, but it no longer fit who he was becoming. Nora had started teaching children in the nearby town 3 days a week. Reading, writing, arithmetic. She had a gift for it, patience and warmth that drew students like moths to flame. Watching her explain fractions to a 10-year-old boy or help a shy girl sound out words made Cole's heart swell with something he'd never felt before. Pride. Not in himself, but in her. In them. The ranch had expanded too. They'd bought neighboring land from a family moving east, adding acreage and another barn. Cole hired 2 ranch hands, young men looking for honest work. He taught them about horses, about hard work, about showing up even when you didn't feel like it. "You're good with them," Nora observed one evening, watching Cole demonstrate proper saddle maintenance to the younger hand. "I'm just teaching what I know. You're mentoring." She slipped her hand into his. "You're building something bigger than just a ranch. You're building a legacy." The word felt strange to Cole. Legacy implied permanence, purpose beyond survival. But looking around at what they'd created, he couldn't deny it. This place, these people, this life mattered. That evening, they stood on their porch as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that took the breath away. The mountain stood eternal in the distance. The creek sang its endless song. Somewhere in the barn, a horse nickered softly. "Do you ever miss it?" "The hunting." Cole considered the question carefully. "Sometimes. The clarity of it, maybe. Bad man does bad things. You track him down, justice is served. It was simple, and this isn't. This is complicated and messy and requires me to actually feel things." He pulled her closer. "This is 100 times harder than tracking killers through the wilderness. But every morning I wake up and you're beside me. Every evening I come in from work and you're here. That's worth more than every bounty I ever collected." She smiled, that transformative expression that still made his pulse quicken. "Smooth talker. I mean it, Nora. You gave me something I didn't know I needed. A reason to stop running. You gave me the same thing." She reached up to touch his face, fingers tracing the scar on his jaw from a fight years ago. A reason to start living again instead of just surviving. They kissed as the sun touched the horizon, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, the first stars were emerging in the darkening sky. "I have something to tell you," Nora said, a nervous edge to her voice. Cole's chest tightened. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Nothing at all." She took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant." The world tilted sideways. Cole stared at her, words temporarily failing him completely. Pregnant. Their baby. I. He swallowed hard, emotions threatening to overwhelm him. Are you sure? The doctor confirmed it yesterday. I'm about 3 months along. Her hand moved to her stomach, protective and tender. I know we never talked about children. I know this changes everything. If you're not ready. He kissed her, deep and desperate, and full of joy so profound it ached. When he finally pulled back, she was laughing through tears. I'll take that as you're happy, she managed. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. His own eyes were wet, and he didn't care. A child. Our child. You don't need words. She guided his hand to her stomach. You just need to be here. Be the man you've already become. Cole knelt slowly, pressing his forehead against her belly. The life growing inside her was barely there yet. Just a promise, just a possibility. But it was real, and it was theirs, and it represented everything he'd never dared to dream about. I'll protect you both, he said roughly. I'll give this child everything I never had. Safety. I swear it. Nora's hands tangled in his hair, holding him close. I know you will. That's why I'm not afraid. They stayed like that as night fell completely, stars emerging in their thousands overhead. The frontier was still dangerous, still unpredictable. But here, in this moment, they had carved out something sacred, something worth fighting for. Kindness changes destinies. The baby came in early spring, during a thunderstorm that shook the rafters. The midwife from town arrived just in time, bustling and efficient. Cole paced the porch like a caged animal, listening to Nora's cries and feeling utterly helpless. One of the ranch hands, a kid named Tom, sat with him. First baby's always the hardest weight. How would you know? Cole snapped. Got 6 siblings. Seen my ma go through it enough times. Tom passed him a flask. Here, take the edge off. Cole drank, the whiskey burning all the way down. Inside, Nora screamed again, and his heart tried to claw its way out of his chest. She's strong, Tom said. She'll be fine. Baby too. You don't know that. No, sir, I don't. But I believe it. 3 hours that felt like 3 years later, the midwife opened the door. Her face was tired but smiling. You have a daughter, Mr. Maddox. Healthy and loud. And your wife wants you. Cole nearly knocked her over getting inside. Nora lay in their bed, sweaty and exhausted and more beautiful than he'd ever seen her. In her arms, wrapped in a blanket, was the smallest human being he'd ever laid eyes on. Cole, Nora said softly. Meet Sarah. Sarah Grace Maddox. He approached like the floor might give way, like this might all be a dream he'd wake from. But when Nora placed the baby in his arms, the weight was real. The tiny fingers that wrapped around his thumb were real. The blue eyes that blinked up at him were real. She's perfect, he whispered. She's ours. Cole looked from his daughter to his wife and back again, and something fundamental shifted in his universe. The violence he'd carried for so long, the anger and grief and guilt, all of it seemed suddenly smaller. Not gone, but manageable, balanced against this overwhelming tide of love and purpose. Thank you, he said to Nora, his voice breaking. Thank you for this. For her. For giving me a life worth living. Nora reached up to touch his face. We gave it to each other. Love can grow from ashes. Sarah grew like a wildflower, hardy and bright. By her first birthday, she was walking, babbling in a language only she understood. She had Nora's dark hair and Cole's gray eyes, a perfect blend of both of them. The ranch continued to prosper. Cole had become something of a local expert on horse breeding, and people came from 3 counties over to buy his stock. Nora's school had expanded, requiring a dedicated building that the town helped construct. They were respected now, part of the community in ways Cole had never imagined possible. He served on the town council. Nora organized church socials. They were ordinary people living ordinary lives. And it was extraordinary. One evening, when Sarah was nearly 2, Cole found himself on the porch with his daughter on his lap, watching the sunset. She pointed at the mountains and said, Purty. That's right, sweetheart. Pretty. Like Mama. Cole's heart melted completely. Just like Mama. Nora joined them, settling into the chair beside his. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from years of knowing someone deeply. Sarah eventually dozed off, her head heavy against Cole's chest. Do you remember the day we met? Nora asked quietly. Every detail. You were crawling through the dirt, telling me not to leave you. I was terrified, angry, certain I was going to die. And now, She looked at him, at their sleeping daughter, at the ranch spread out before them in the golden light. Now I'm certain I'm going to live. Really live. Because of you. Because of us, Cole corrected. Yes, because of us. He thought about the bounty hunter he'd been, the man who'd measured his worth in wanted posters and bodies. That person felt like a stranger now, someone from another life entirely. I've been thinking, Cole said carefully, about hanging my old gun belt in the barn. Not getting rid of it, just putting it away. I don't need it anymore. Nora's hand found his. What do you need? This. Just this. You. Sarah. This place. This life. He looked at her fully. You saved me, Nora. Not just that day in the dust, but every day since. And you saved me. She leaned over to kiss him softly. We saved each other. Sarah stirred, mumbling in her sleep. Cole adjusted his hold, making sure she was comfortable. Such a simple thing, holding his child. But it represented everything he'd never known he wanted. A legacy not written in blood, but in love. The years that followed were good ones. Sarah grew into a bright, curious child who asked endless questions and had opinions about everything. Cole taught her to ride, to rope, to respect the land and the animals. Nora taught her to read, to think, to be kind. They had 2 more children. A son named Daniel, after Nora's first husband, because Cole understood that love doesn't end, it just changes form. And another daughter, Grace, named for second chances and unearned mercy. The ranch became something bigger than just their home. It became a place of refuge. Cole and Nora took in orphans, gave jobs to drifters looking to go straight, offered shelter to women fleeing bad situations. They paid forward the grace they'd been given. Cole never picked up a bounty again. His gun hung in the barn, cleaned and oiled but unused. Sometimes young men would come asking for stories of his hunting days, and he'd oblige with edited versions that left out the worst parts. But he always ended the same way. That life, he'd say. It looked like freedom, but it was just another kind of prison. Real freedom is having something worth staying for. On their 10th anniversary, Nora gave him a gift. A book, leather-bound and handmade. Inside were drawings Sarah had made, pressed flowers Grace had collected, even a tooth Daniel had lost. The pages were filled with moments, memories, the ordinary, extraordinary life they'd built. Our story, Nora said simply. Cole leafed through it, throat tight. Here was Sarah's first word. There was the day they'd finished building the new barn. Pictures of birthdays, Christmases, random Tuesday afternoons that mattered because they'd lived them together. It's perfect, he managed. It's not finished. She smiled. We've got a lot more pages to fill. Healing begins when you stop running. 20 years after Cole found Nora bleeding in the dust, he stood on the same porch, watching the same sunset. His hair was gray now, his body marked by old wounds and hard work. But his heart was full in ways his younger self couldn't have comprehended. Sarah was married, living in town with her husband and expecting their first child. Daniel was away at college, studying law because he wanted to help people the way his parents had. Grace was 16, all fire and determination, already talking about becoming a doctor. Nora joined him on the porch, moving a little slower these days but still beautiful, still the woman who'd changed everything. She leaned against him, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders automatically, a gesture repeated 10,000 times. What are you thinking about? She asked. Everything. Nothing. How lucky I am. Luck had nothing to do with it. She looked up at him. You chose to stop that day. You chose to help me. You chose to stay. Best choices I ever made. Mine too. They watched their ranch, their legacy, their life spread out before them. The work would continue after they were gone. Sarah would take over the main house. Daniel would handle the legal aspects. Grace would probably build a clinic nearby and drive them all crazy with her intensity. The Maddox name, once associated with violence and death, would be known for generosity and life. Cole had rewritten his story, one choice at a time, one day at a time. Do you have any regrets? Nora asked. Cole considered the question seriously. He thought about the men he'd killed, the years spent alone, the pain he'd carried. Then he thought about the family sleeping inside, the land beneath his feet, the woman beside him. Not a single one, he said honestly. Every hard thing led me here. To you. To them. To this. That's a good way to see it. It's the only way to see it. He kissed the top of her head. You told me once that broken people could hold each other up. That the cracks are where the light gets in. I remember. You were right. About all of it. Nora smiled, That transformative expression that still made his heart skip after all these years. We were right. Together, the sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in colors that had no names. In the barn, horses settled for the night. In the house, their grandchild-to-be rested in Sarah's belly. In the town below, people went about their lives, better for having known the Maddoxes. And on the porch, two people who'd saved each other stood watching the day end. And the night began, knowing that tomorrow would bring more of the same beautiful, ordinary extraordinariness. Cole had spent years hunting men, but in the end, what he'd really been hunting was this: home, belonging, purpose, love. He'd found it all in a woman crawling through the dust, whispering 3 words that changed everything. "Don't leave me here." He hadn't, and she hadn't left him either. They'd built something together that would outlast them both. A legacy of second chances, of redemption earned through choice, of love that grew not despite the darkness, but because they'd walked through it together. "Cole," Nora said quietly. "Yeah, thank you for saving my life." He pulled her closer, his voice rough with emotion. "No, thank you for giving me one worth saving." The stars emerged one by one, ancient and endless. The wind carried the scent of sage and possibility. And 2 people who'd been broken and lost stood whole and found, exactly where they belonged. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to Cowboy Tales for more true-hearted stories from the Old West. Remember, it's never too late to choose a different path. It's never too late to build something beautiful from the ashes. And it's never too late to find home in another person's heart.